Jim Shank.
Hey Jim, still waiting for a quorum. There's only 2 of you so far.
No worries. Well, while we're waiting, hey, thank you very much for the tour last night. That was great.
Glad you enjoyed it.
My big deal is I just want to see how we can get the ADA stuff to work.
Yeah, well, we'll have a quorum hill in a minute. We can discuss it.
Valerie.
Up and Valerie, we do have a quorum, so we'll be able to have a meeting here in a minute. We'll just give it till 6 o'clock.
Okay, thank you.
Item number 1, call to order, meeting called to order at 6 p.m.
Take the mic close to you, and that other mic right there, that's the phone mic.
Oh, take this?
Yes. There you go.
Meeting called to order at 6 p.m. Item number 2, roll call. William Dworthip. Valerie Garcia.
She's on, we must have lost her.
Vanessa Navarrete.
Present.
Tiffany Rowell.
Valerie.
Jim Shank.
I'm here, Nathan.
Okay, thank you. Jim Shank.
Okay, I'm back.
Jim Shank.
Present.
Heston Clank. Melissa Robigo. Okay, item number 3, Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all. Item number 4, consent agenda pursuant to section 246E. Matters listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion and one vote. Prior to consideration of the consent agenda, the chairperson will ask whether any member of the committee requests any items be removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion. 1, minutes of regular session minutes from September 24th, 2020.
I move to approve the consent agenda. This is Vanessa.
I second it. This is Jim.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Item number 5, new business. A, discussion/update on multi-gen center.
Okay, we've got Carl Kilgore on the line. We all had the tour last night, and so we're all aware of the major issue that is going to be determining a lot of what our design is going to end up being, and that is accessibility. Carl has some preliminary ideas about where to put the elevator, but they're probably not fleshed out well enough now for us to say for sure that's where they're going to go.
Mr. Pryor?
Yes?
Mr. Pryor, this is Vanessa.
Yeah.
Can we ask that the community members have their phone on mute unless they're speaking? Because I hear a lot of background talk. And so it's hard to hear. What do you press to mute? There should be on your iPhone, I'm assuming on your iPhone or Android, there should be a mute button.
If not, you can hit *6 and that will also mute your phone.
She's muted.
Okay, so it's a bit quieter now. So some of the preliminary things that we need to talk about is the conceptual design for the placement of things. I gave everybody a map last night and I emailed it out to everyone else. So you should have a copy of the plan from 2000 or so that when the town was first considering taking this on, they put together. Through our tour, I think the library media center is fairly well received. I don't see anybody who has an objection to putting that there. It seems to fit the use pretty well, and it's more space than they have now. The main building will be a mix of the first floor. Because the core concept here is we have to have a central point of access and then the ability for someone to control that door. One of the admin staffs has to be at that front door. So town hall staff is going to be right at the front door. That's where we're going to set up our administrative offices. So that will take a good portion of that building. There also need to be the workout room. Where we put that's an open question, and we'll have to see where it fits. The workout room is probably best suited for the third floor, the upper floor of the main building. And it would probably have to go to the north side, but I'm open to anybody's thoughts on where we need to put that. One of the things we have to be aware of is the most likely spot for the elevator that hits all of the different levels, because there's actually 4 levels. You have 2 two-story buildings offset by a half-story. So it's actually 4 levels, which makes the access more difficult. But by putting that in the area that we looked at last night, the front part of the suites, each of the suites on that north side, they have, one of them had a developed bathroom there, one didn't. We'll probably lose one of those bathrooms, and the elevator would have to go there. But by doing that, you can have a platform on just about every level in the building, and that would give us all the access we need for the main building. It also has access points on both the floor level and the upper level of the old library, which is where we're talking about for the new senior center. We're going to have to do a little work to determine whether the senior center is going to fit in there. We're going to have to do some square footage calculations and determine what the ease of access we can do is. The seniors have to be able to move back and forth freely without any undue difficulty. So that's going to take some planning. I don't think we're there yet to say that firmly where it's going to go in there. We'll have to do the math. But conceptually, we're going to look at how we can fit it in there unless we have more discussion on that issue. One of the things we have to do tonight is determine, here's the way this works. We have a preliminary architecture report that has to be produced in order to get the last funding for this project. That preliminary architecture report is conceptual in nature. It should have a budget but it isn't a buildable set of plans. It is just, here's our conceptual design, here's how much we think it's going to cost to this conceptual design with as much detail as we can muster. That's what we need in order to get funded. I have a meeting with the EDA tomorrow. They've already assigned to us a management officer for that grant. We have also already received a letter of support from both of our senators and 3 of our representatives. Sinema, McSally, Grijalva, O'Halloran, and I don't remember the last one. All signed on a letter of support. So that's already gone to the EDA as well. So we're lining up everything we need to do to get that grant put together. Another thing that has to be done is a full EPA assessment. That is scheduled for sometime in the next few weeks. I've already signed the PO on it. The building is going into escrow. It was sent to the escrow agent today, so we should have that escrow started in the next week. We're putting our deposit down on the building. We also have to have,
One quick question. When I read through the document, it talked about escrow following the rules of Maricopa County. Could you explain why it's Maricopa and not Pinal?
that's because that's where Mr. Cardin lives, and that's where his selected title escrow agent is. So it's not a big deal. I mean, they're both similar rule sets. They're in the same state, but he selected the escrow agent for this one. So we're dealing with through his title company. Did that answer that question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
So Todd, this is Vanessa.
Yeah.
What is our role tonight? Like, what do you need from us?
We need to know the conceptual.
You just need our. Go ahead. Sorry.
I need some clear guidance to Carl that the conceptual design we've discussed is acceptable, and that's what we need to move forward with in the preliminary architectural report. Doesn't mean that will be finally built, but
I know, but so I don't. So what you're telling us right now is a conceptual, like, or the one from 2000 is a conceptual, because you wanted to approve a conceptual, but I don't know what the conceptual is.
this is a work session. I'm not really asking you to make a formal decision. This is a work session to discuss it. So
Okay.
the design from 2000 is pretty similar to what I conceived for the building to start with. If you look at the design from 2000, I didn't change these labels. This is what they pictured doing.
Right.
So if those haven't changed, it helps us shortcut a lot of the discussion. The library, for instance, the librarian is very much in support of moving up there. They seem to very much enjoy the tour last night. I don't have any issues raised by that. As far as the senior center, that one's going to have issues we're going to have to address, and we're going to have to make sure that it's right before they move in there. So that may have to change. But as an upfront concept, is that what we want to move forward with Carl so he can put it into the plan?
Well, that's difficult to say because you're saying that you need to go back and calculate square footage. So it's hard for me to say, yeah, just keep it there or move it somewhere else without knowing that. Because first impression or second impression going in there, it's tight for them. I mean, do I think they fit? Probably, but they're used to a bigger open space and the ability to move around more freely, and that's just kind of tight in that space. So, I mean, I think it's doable, but I think that it's going to take some money to modify it.
Yes, and I would agree with that. The square footage issue, and grand total square footage, it's probably just a little bit larger than their current building, but it's separated up differently. And that's that's really going to be it's got a much bigger kitchen than the current one does. So takes more of the space. It has a completely separate room that that was part of the plan for the move up here. If you look at the design for up here, it's actually bigger than we were planning to move up to build up here. So again, broken up. It's square footage. Like I said, it's a little bigger, but because the space is broken a little different, it will take a little more adjustment to learn how to fit into that space. So
Right.
yeah.
I mean, I know that, like just as an example, I mean, I know you like all those kitchens, but to me, if it's the senior center, then we should think about, just keeping that 1/3 back wall of the kitchen and opening about the rest. That's just my opinion. And if structurally possible, I feel like we need to knock down some walls. Maybe have columns for the structure, but to try and open up some of the space.
Actually, Vanessa, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that the kitchen was to have two purposes. One is to be for the senior center, but also to be a certified industrial kitchen that could be used by entrepreneurs making food and stuff. So I don't.
Right,
in that
a commercial
case, I would
kitchen.
think, in that case, leaving it the way it is might be better. I stayed for part of the discussion with the ladies from the senior center, and yes, they are worried. And one of the other issues they had was they like where they are because when they're in the cooking area, they can see the whole area where people are sitting, and I understand that. But the other side of it is I thought Todd tried to present the issues with them very well. The property on Main Street is not viable to remain a senior center, and my understanding is the original plan was always to move it. And I think we have to try and make the modifications to make it work as best we can for them. And as Todd said, it may take closed circuit TV, but the general plan, I think what Todd was asking about, the general plan to move forward with the EPA and stuff, I'm in favor of it, and I think we ought to go forward with, even with the knowledge that we are going to have to make changes. In general, I think the layout is pretty much where we're going.
Oh, no, I do agree with that. I think in general, I guess that's why I prompted with my first question is like, what do you need from us? Because in general, this concept works.
That's all we really need at this point, and
Okay.
that what we need for the EAP is a generalized concept with a rough idea how much we're going to spend, and that I have to be able to present to get our final funding. After that, then we have to sit down and do the final design and make the buildable plans. And that's at that point, if there need to be changes made, things moved around, we can do that once we're funded. But in order to get funded, I need a conceptual design.
Okay. I mean, I'm okay with this as a conceptual design, but I did have a follow-up question about this kitchen, because I know you guys like these little kitchens. And I don't remember, so I apologize. In the new building or the Roosevelt, did we have all these little kitchens, or is it just one big?
It wasn't going to be this broken up, and it was going to be a much smaller space. But yes, it did have culinary teaching stations, but not to this level. This one is set up for a school of 500 kids and 30-person classrooms.
Right, I've been there.
Yeah. So it's a little bigger than we need, but also we may end up taking some of that space up for the commercial kitchen itself. Again, this kitchen is at least 2 or 3 times bigger than the one at the senior center now. There's a lot more space to do things with. So we will have to bring the designers in and see what they give us. The budget for the fixtures on doing it in this building was $91,000. So that was big commercial stoves, commercial ovens, everything else. And there is enough room to do that in that building easily. The problem is more storage, and whether or not we're going to have to fence off some area of that building to be a walk-in pantry or something like that. So storage is much a bigger issue to me than the actual commercial kitchen space.
So, I know it's kind of like across the breezeway, but in the plan that you gave us from 2000, there's like I guess it's labeled thrift store.
Yeah.
Like, can that be potentially used as storage for the seniors and maybe an office for Carol and Maxine in that area?
I think it could. It's huge for that. It could be, but it's kind of overkill. But for actual prep space, they're going to want their supplies close to hand when they're cooking. We are not currently doing any inside cooking. We are getting all our meals cooked from Bateman and Associates or whatever out of Apache Junction, and they're delivered by truck every day, and then they're reheated here. So we aren't using near of the potential of a commercial kitchen. That doesn't mean that they couldn't cook out of the kitchen. That kitchen fed, like I said, 500 kids ate out of that kitchen every day. So it's a lot bigger than what we have now. It's got a lot more potential, but as far as senior center use, they're not going to be using near the potential of that kitchen just because everything comes cold from the valley and is reheated.
Bob, this is Tiffany. Can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
So you just answered one of them, was basically, we're talking about a commercial kitchen that the seniors don't really use to its full ability, I'm assuming. So, I mean, I know there's really no way to tell, but I'm assuming that if, say, somebody wanted to go in the business of baking cookies, could they use the commercial kitchen area, or do they have to use these separate cubicles? Maybe we don't need as many cubicles than what's currently there.
I would agree that we could probably eliminate some of the cubicles, and like I said, my focus would be on storage more than anything else. But absolutely, it can be used as a commercial kitchen. Part of the concept is that it's going to work in harmony with the Enterprise and Innovation Center, or Entrepreneurship and Innovation Center. And if there is someone who wants to launch a new business creating a food product, then they will be able to do it out of the commercial kitchen. They'll be able to get technical support from SeedSpot, and they'll be able to get their business started. And teaching classes out of there is another option. Again, like you said, it is bigger than we need. So, my suggestion would be to Carl that eliminating some of the prep space in favor of storage space would be a good trade-off.
Right. I think I can, because I take care of seniors, I think I can sympathize with the workers probably a little more closely as far as you kind of like to see what's going on, for safety reasons, and having it so broke up. And I know there's, obviously that's where the senior center has to go, and you have to approve, move forward with a design. But at some point, we might have to really take a closer look to see what we can do to open that space up a little bit more.
I wouldn't disagree. I think the problem with opening up the downstairs is one of the issues that were raised is that the ladies at the senior center are not going to want to share a restroom with the gentlemen, so we're going to have to build out a different bathroom for them. And Anthony has some plans around that, but that's going to take some of that space, and we may need those interior petitions to make that possible. But that's stuff that can be really hammered out in the final design. The other building we haven't talked about is the Industrial Arts Building. Does anyone have any thoughts about making that the Enterprise Innovation Center and the downstairs being a workforce center? Is there any disagreement with that basic concept?
No, I mean, I think it's especially the downstairs area, that's a perfect area for what we're thinking.
Yeah, I think it all looks good to me, and you know, I asked about the 3 garages. I mean, that could be additional if we needed it, and as you said, and or for storage, you know, the space looks appropriate.
The warehouse storage building, the one out on the side, that one likely will be turned into the construction yard for the crew that's working on the building. So construction, storage, and everything would be in there. But I have no plans at all for the area that's labeled recreation dance. In my tours, I haven't actually been in there. Carl, have you been in that room? Do you know what's in there?
Recreation dance area?
It says weight room. It's right next to the parking lot on the lowest level.
Oh, yeah, it's just a storage room, really. There's just a bunch of items that are just stored in there. I think that Mr. Card is probably just putting stuff in there.
And
It
that,
used to be the weight room when I was in school.
Yeah, it's just got one partitioning wall inside there, so that's about it.
You could, some of the nonprofits use it as their storage area, to kind of supplying that to them at the town hall.
that is absolutely true. One of the things we'll have to think on, and this group maybe ought to be keeping in the back of their mind, is what's going to happen to this building once we've moved, which is 1.5 years from now. I know members of my staff have suggested considering the Aho Artist Colony housing kind of thing, but that's a very early days idea and nobody's attached to it. So that's something to put in your back of your mind. What are we going to do with this building? We do have to talk about one more space before we let Carl off, and that would be the Bessich building. My thought for that is there's an entire, there was a big push with resolution back when the smelter came down that they were going to put together some sort of historical mitigation for the loss of the smelter. There's an existing contract out there that says that we're going to study and work on that. Because of the EIS, that has not moved at all. My thought for the Bessich building is the front office, that is the front classroom that's kind of separated from the others, would be a good spot for the alumni society, the high school alumni. And I was thinking for the main 4 classroom quad, if that is structurally possible, I would like to knock those interior walls out and turn that into assembly space, meeting space, and we could use the resolution as suggested to me on several occasions. We follow the SRP multi-purpose room concept. What they've done is they have a big open meeting room, but all around the boundaries are interactive exhibits on the history of SRP. And that, it's kind of like it's a museum that has more than one use and more value than just a museum. We also have the ability to work with the Historical Society to bring up some more historical exhibits for up there. Things like rail cars and stuff, and put them on trails to go down to the Magma Club. And Resolution has expressed interest and excitement in that, and there's separate funding sources for it. So one of the things I would say in our conceptual design is that ought to be the first item that's dropped as far as budget and put as an alternate. So if we decide that's going to cost $400,000, we put it on as an alternate, we pull it off the basic budget, and we get another grant source. The EIS has something called a programmatic agreement in it that says that Resolution will find historic buildings and historic sites in the area and pay to have them rehabbed. So that's an extra funding source we can go after. It's in the EIS. It isn't finalized yet. It'll be finalized when the EIS is put in. But since we're talking about it, I wanted to find out if anybody else has a different read on that room, if they ought to be reserving it for something else, if it should be, what's the plan for that?
So Todd, I think everything you said sounds like a really great idea, and one of the problems is that the Historical Society doesn't have the space to even display what they have. But the one issue I have is I don't think that that should be counted as resolution's answer to what they committed to do. I mean, you're mixing that with like the piece that's in the EIS that they should be supporting historical sites. I see them as two different things and should be funded separately. But the idea of what you're talking about doing with the space and putting it as, you know, not as part of the main budget, I agree with all of that.
Part of the issue with that feasibility study agreement is that it doesn't have funding attached. It says, we will work together to come up with funding on the feasibility. So why haven't we been pushing it? Because I'm really leery of building a feasibility report around something we don't have the money to build. So that one's going to be a more complex conversation for the future, I think. But for today, do we agree with that basic plan to direct the architect to develop it as that future historic multi-use room and put it as an alternate on the PAR?
Yeah, I know that.
All right, so is there any more questions on these? Carl, do you need any more direction from us to get to work on the PAR?
I wanted to ask about looking at the senior center, the dining event area seems to be much smaller than was programmed for. And I wondered if there was a thought about the council chambers option 1 location with respect to how big the council chambers need to be. That's some very large room up there. I think that there is an opportunity with the elevator proximity to utilize that for senior center space if you want to. But it really begs the question of how big of a council chamber do you need? Is there another space that might serve that function?
I apologize, Carl, I probably wasn't clear enough earlier. That's what everybody came up with last night. I showed them the front room and they about had a heart attack because it was too small. So we all decided that the figuring out how to get good access to the second floor and then perhaps linking that by closed circuit, maybe what we'll look at is our conceptual, and we'll see if that can be made to work right.
Using the second floor council chambers for the senior center? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that the old council chambers, before we moved to this building, was the senior center. There was just, this podium that's sitting in this room was sitting on the side of the senior center. And the council would have their meetings at night. Seniors were never there because they're there during the day. So it's a good joint use. We're not taking.
Oh, I see.
So we're not taking this ugly big podium over there. We're probably going to build something nicer, so we can build it a little more back against the wall.
Okay. So that is what's currently identified as the council chambers as a dual functional use for the senior center. Is that right?
Yes. And most of the time it will be used as a senior center. So.
Understood.
All right. Any other questions? All right. I'll turn it back over to
I
Nick.
want to know if you visited the basement classroom.
I went down there with Elijah once. It is pretty bare, but it's going. If you want to know the area that's not going to have handicap accessibility, it's going to be the basement. So whatever we have down there is going to have to be very limited because it doesn't have accessibility. But yeah, I did look at it. It's all cleaned out and nice, and all the plumbing's fixed and all that sort of stuff. But I just don't know how much we want to take advantage of it.
Any more questions?
One of the things that I am looking at with respect to access to the gymnasium floor, which is it's about 5 feet 9 inches above the main floor, is possibly just using a wheelchair lift for that height. I don't know that the elevator, I'm going to look at it, but I'm not sure if the elevator will name at that particular level. They are looking at a elevator that has basically it's a hydraulic that has doors on either side, so it's really conducive to kind of accessing spaces that are kind of half offset from each other, so the elevator can communicate with both spaces on each side.
I mapped it out when I was doing my conceptual design on it, and it looks like it does, because it's on the same level as those little apartments. It actually looks like it matches up. It's easier to match up with the basketball court than it is to match up with the front of the building. But I think we're going to need ramps on the front. But we'll talk about that more. We have a meeting next week to go over these specifics and to eyeball each ramp and each thought. So we'll work out those details then, I guess.
Yeah.
Any more questions? All right, item B, discussion / possible approval of the infrastructure and service plan for the airport contiguous property annexation.
Has everyone had a chance to, I got a bunch of edits from Vanessa, thank you very much. She caught just about everything that I missed, so that's good. There is one edit in there still that isn't corrected, and that is the, and the police, it says that we will look to seek additional funding to add 3 officers and 1 it says none sworn, and that should be non-sworn, which basically means an administrative staff. But that's the one correction she caught that isn't in this. Well, I've applied most of the other edits. Does anybody else have any changes or anything to this document?
No, I read through it and conceptually, the big picture to me is basically we're talking about what services the town will provide in exchange for the annexation and that we are able to pay for them. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, it makes sense to me, and I think we should approve it.
All right, I'll ask for approval of that when we get, one of the things I would want to mention is where we are with annexation. We have signed the pre-annexation agreement with the resolution. I'm just waiting to get somebody to come down and actually sign the petition. Once that's done, we have to send that petition, or we have to record it at the county recorder. Then the council will approve an ordinance approving this plan and the annexation. And then I have to send that annexation plan to about 20 different places. Once we do that, there's a 30-day, as soon as we do that, there's a 30-day comment period, objection period. Once that passes, then the annexation will be final. This is
So,
the...
let's say somebody like Emirates puts an objection. How is that objection handled?
That is, I have no idea. I'd have to ask the attorney. It's an objection period. It says we have to have it. It doesn't say what you do with it. I assume the council will take legal advice at that time and decide how to proceed from there. But this is the farthest I've ever gotten in this process. In fact, I think it's the farthest the town's ever gotten in this process. So I don't know what we're going to do with an objection. I'll have to read that section. The annexation guide has been my Bible through this, and I triple check it with the attorney, and then I triple check it with Ruby just to make sure we do it all. We're about 20 steps into a 22-step process.
So at this point, can we move to approve, or are we still discussing?
No, you can move to, if you would like to make a motion.
I'll move to approve the infrastructure and service plan for the airport and contiguous property annexation.
I second it, this is Jim.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6, summary of current events, committee members.
This is Vanessa. I don't have any updates.
Valerie? Tiffany?
I know it's so blank at this point. I know the cemetery cleanup's coming up for the rebuild period. And other than that, I know the chamber is hopefully moving forward to have the home tour the end of January. Hope that all works out good, but, other than that, I'm not aware of anything.
Okay, Jim?
Yeah, I'd just jump on what Tiffany had to say. The Fairview cleanup is Saturday. I believe it starts at 9 o'clock. It's on Facebook. And, you know, if you can work an hour, you work a couple hours, whatever. It's, I think this is our third or fourth one, and it's gotten really good response. So, I don't have anything else.
The cemetery has never looked so good, in my opinion. Makes me wonder all along what the inmates were cleaning.
Well, we hired a bunch of non-inmate cleaners to do it, and it's you know, it's amazing how much when you pay somebody more than 50 cents an hour, how much harder they work. But it does look a lot better. I think adding the garbage cans was a good change too, because that was a constant struggle trying to get those old barrels emptied out. So, but Rebuild has taken over the volunteer effort to keep it clean, and I think it's a huge advance in how this thing's going to go. Rebuild is going to be a huge asset for the community doing projects like this.
They have been, and I'm very pleased.
Anything else?
I would like to remind everybody that the Halloween laser show, it was going to be a 4th of July laser show, now it's a Halloween laser show. And the donations of candy are coming in. APS is donating $150 worth of candy. The last big thing that we're trying to figure out is decorating the fire station bay. So if anybody's feeling really enthusiastic about decoration, they do need the help. So, but the VFW is going to be stuffing.
And they'll start decorating that morning or the day before?
Nathan's nodding at me, and he's on the youth committee that's involved in that. So.
Yes, they'll be decorating that.
So, the morning of, on the 31st?
Yes.
Okay.
Anything else? All right, moving on to item 7, scheduling of next meeting.
It'll be our normal scheduled meeting. There's a lot of things that are going to be happening on this project. Hopefully, we'll have some more progress to discuss, and we can celebrate the final approval of the annexation. So we'll probably have the meeting on the 4th Thursday next month as well.
I think it's on Thanksgiving, so we have to decide. That's Thanksgiving Day.
Ruby's telling me that is on Thanksgiving Day. So do we want to cancel that meeting and just schedule it for December? Well, December, it'll be at Christmas.
Yeah, we don't have meetings in December. It's up to them.
Yeah, and it depends on what we need to approve. I mean, I feel like there's things that we need to discuss. I would think there's things that we need to discuss on the multi-term.
It'll be
That we wait to not
Christmas
have-
Eve in December.
How about the week before or the week after?
There's a meeting every Thursday for every month. So the only one is a 5th Thursday, if there happens to be a 5th Thursday in the month, like there is this one. That's the only one that doesn't have a meeting. And we're scheduling a special council meeting for that one. So there's just no open, we can do it on a Wednesday.
A Wednesday,
Good with
Tuesday
that.
or Wednesday might be okay.
November?
That would be November the 25th.
That's the eve of Thanksgiving.
That's Thanksgiving Eve. We could do does a Monday
Yeah.
work for people? Or a Tuesday?
Monday or Tuesday?
Tuesday. Yeah, the 23rd doesn't work for me, but the 24th is good.
November 24th.
All right, Ruby's writing down November 24th. As we get closer, we'll send out an invite and an agenda, and if you have conflicts, let us know.
Any other questions? Moving on to item 8, adjournment. We have a motion to adjourn.
I will make that motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned at 6:42 p.m.
Yay!
Thank you.
Be
Good night.
safe. Good night.
Well, I enjoyed that meeting. Everybody had the same questions I had.
All right, let's see if I can get this stream to go through this time. Do you end your stream? Yes?